Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ryan Dosa podcast. Today, we are joined by Jeremy Heath. Jeremy is a pro natural bodybuilder with the IPL living out of Southern California. He is retired at 34 years old after having worked in insurance and owned fitness centers. He is an avid guitar player and loves to travel the world with his family. Here is Jeremy Heath. Jeremy, how are you today?
Fantastic. Hey man, thanks so much for having me. Uh, this is totally a treat to have gotten the invite to be here today.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely my pleasure. I've been following your journey for quite some time now, so it's nice to finally meet somewhat in person. Um, so yeah, with that, we will jump right into this. What does your training look like these days?
Um, uh, how micro do you want me to get on this answer, or how macro do you want this answer to be? How zoomed out?
Maybe start with the kind of give a general overview for someone that's kind of kind of new to bodybuilding, and then after you give that, then get as deep as kind of cater to a more advanced audience.
Sure. So I follow kind of what I think people from a split perspective would be a bit of a full body split. Essentially, I have looked at all my different muscle groups and the types of movements that work well for me there, and then basically repeat those as often as I'm able to while not under recovering. And so trying to fit that into a push pull legs or an upper lower really didn't work so well for me. So, for instance, I might do hamstrings every fourth day, and I might do quads every third day, as I find for the amount of volume that I need to get a good per session stimulus um, matches up with that amount of hours of recovery time. So, like today, for instance, I did biceps, quads, and lats. And you might find me in a couple days, my biceps will be recovered, but my quads won't. So I might have another day where I'm doing, for instance, like delts, biceps, and calves, because by that point, those muscle groups will be back on the rotation. So sometimes when I'm working out, a workout might be something like an hour and 15 minutes in and out. And some training sessions might be 2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes, just depends on kind of like what needs to get done in that day. But that's generally how I have approached my overall like kind of hierarchy of training is looking at per session stimulus, like what's the most good quality sets I can perform in a row before kind of turns into junk, and then just repeating that as often as I humanly can, and kind of dividing it out like a regular bodybuilder. I got chest, shoulders, back, hams, quads, that sort of thing, kind of dividing it up by a body part and then like organizing it in that way. So that's might be a little strange, but that's basically how it looks these days.
Awesome. Okay, so it sounds like you're really auto-regulating thing. You don't necessarily have like a split, like you don't go like Monday chest, Tuesday quad. You kind of really flow. Is that correct? Or do you have kind
Yeah.
of
I mean, I don't I definitely don't have like a 7 day. I may come back to the same workout every ninth or 12th day. Usually I have a few main movements. So for instance, right now, I'll just take example. I'm doing a barbell back squat, which happens to fit my body really well, has an X to fatigue ratio. I do a hack squat and I do a leg press. So those are kind of like my three um, compound quad X I'm using. Uh, the thing is, after I do a bunch of sets, I got maybe 4 to 6 good sets of hack squats in me before the quality starts to really go down. But let's say I do 6 really great sets of hack squats. On another day, I'll do leg press, and maybe I have on the leg press exercise, I might have between 5 and 7 sets I'm able to do that are like really good, high quality sets. But if take for example that on one day I'm able to do 5 really good sets of hack squats, on the next time I train quads, I'll probably do leg press, as I like to kind of cycle through the different main movements. 5 sets of hack squats takes me a little more time to recover from than 5 sets of leg press. So I might only need 48 hours in between the leg press and the hack squat workout, but I might need 72 or maybe even 5 days after hack squats to be able to come back to like my barbell back squat variation. So no, I don't have a set split. I'm just kind of waiting for a muscle group to feel recovered. And essentially, since I've been massing and gaining weight, if I look at my logbook and on a given day, I don't 100% think I'm going to beat those reps and that weight, or like, use, 5 pounds more for the same number of reps, or use the same weight for more reps on all the sets. If I'm not 100% sure that's going to happen, I don't repeat that workout, or I don't repeat that muscle group until I'm 100% sure. Like this morning, I looked at my logbook and I saw, back squats were on the list, and I looked at the weight and I looked at the reps. started to warm up, and I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to crush this. And so I took the workout. If, for instance, I'd gotten up to maybe 90% of my workout weight and was starting to feel really slow and heavy, I just would have put off squats until tomorrow.
Hmm. Interesting. Very so. So in the case you just described, so you warm up, you're like, nah, it's not there. Do you then go to leg press? Is the workout done?
I just go on to whatever my next muscle group would be. So
Yeah.
today I had squats. If I had been warming that up and I got up to 275 or whatever, and it was starting to move kind of slower than I would like to, or my back was kind of wasn't having it, I just would have pushed quads off till tomorrow and moved on to lats as my, moved on to my pulling exercises that I had for today. So, and that's kind of how I do rest days. So I don't ever have a programmed day. If I would have come into my workout today and see I got, quads, lats, and biceps, and all three of those were kind of feeling stinky, then I basically would have warmed up each of those movements, felt like it wasn't there, and basically that would have been it. Kind of would have been what you might call like an active recovery. A few warm up sets for each muscle group. Yeah, it's not there. I'm not going to push it, and that's basically my day off. So usually I find I'm able to string together somewhere between maybe like 10 and 30 days in a row of hard training before I'm forced to take some days off, and that's that. And then whenever I don't feel like training, like mentally, that's usually I'll just tell myself, if I'm really dreading hitting the gym, I take 3 days off in a row altogether, and I don't even warm up. I don't do any gym work on those days. And that usually happens to me every, say, 3 to 6 months, where I need to just take 3 days off mentally. So if it's physically not there, I just skip the muscle group for the day. If I'm mentally not there, which only probably happens every 3 to 6 months, like I said, I just force myself to take 3 days completely off from the gym, to get my mind back in the game.
Okay, fascinating. Yeah, I really like that you have that, you know, you're not under any illusion of dogmatism that, accumulation, has to be 4 to 6 weeks. You really mesh it. It's like you said, 10 to 30 days. And that's really interesting to me because I've never heard that before. You always hear, how many weeks, how many weeks. Well, we remember weeks are kind of like a man-made construct, right? The body doesn't necessarily same thing, so that's really cool that you have that, that ability to gauge yourself there. Um, what is your favorite carb source currently?
Hmm. Probably like if, the desert island kind of question, I would pick the red or orange or whatever color they are, sweet potatoes. I
Sweet
like those a
potatoes.
lot. Yeah, that's probably my number one favorite carb source.
Uh,
Um, I'll take them salty. I'll take them with syrup on them. I'll take them in a pie. Any way you want to do some sweet potatoes. I like the skins on, skins off. I like sweet potato chips. So give me a sweet potato
uh,
anyway, and that would be probably my preferred. If I only had one choice of carbs, that would be my one I'd go with.
yeah, I like the skin too. Did you have any sweet potato pie on Thanksgiving?
I actually made something similar. I made like a sweet potato cheesecake, essentially taking a pumpkin cheesecake recipe and then subbing in sweet potato for it. And I also used a little bit of golden beets mixed in there. Sounds kind of strange, but it was like the hit of Thanksgiving. I got so many compliments on it. Everybody was like, "What is in this?" And I was like, "It's beet and sweet potato cheesecake." So yeah, I had that idea, but cheesecake instead of regular pie.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, I haven't had sweet potatoes in years. I used to just down the things, but now I'm a rice cake head. Just the convenience of it, you
Yeah.
just take it right out. But I'll do white potatoes though for the nutrients. But anyways, how does your training change depending on if you're massing or cutting?
It doesn't really, especially in the past couple of years. I essentially just follow the same basic idea. If the gains aren't there, I don't take the workout, and if the gain and if the progress is there, then I do. The main difference is I notice when I get below a certain body weight or below a certain calorie intake, I'm really not going to progress anymore. And so perhaps I change my algorithm from when I'm doing my warm ups. Am I going to escalate reps or escalate load? In that case, that would be something I would always do when I'm massing. When I'm cutting, usually when I get down to about 155 or lower, 155 pounds or less, I basically just look to maintain performance. And so instead of algorithmically considering are you going to make progress or not, I start thinking, can you at least match what you did last time? And like my last prep, my last cut, basically, there was a lot of weeks strung together of hitting the same weights over and over again, but at least I didn't lose any performance. So So that, I guess, there is a way that is different. Is the decision making and whether or not to train a muscle is massing. Can I make progress? And when I'm cutting at a certain point, it's like, can I just not lose strength? And I'll still take the workout on the cut if I won't do worse than last time.
Awesome.
So the amount of volume I can do kind of auto regulates down a little bit when I'm in a cut because I'm always going by my per session volume. So if I'm in a mass, it's more likely I might be able to do, say, 5 to 10 really good sets in a row. In a cut, I might only be able to do 4 to 6 really good sets in a row before I'm feeling gassed out. And so, kind of auto regulating, I will do less sets as I feel like the quality drops off when I'm in the deficit or when I'm below a certain body weight. And then obviously I might look to make less gains or look to see less quantitative performance increments when I'm in a cut because it just isn't there.
Yeah, very well said. Yeah, that was a common theme in my contest prep as well. It's like can't really expect. You could add load to the bar, but at what cost? To technique, to mind muscle connection, all that. Um, you get super lean during your contest preps. What strategies have you implemented to deal with the negative side effects associated with getting so lean?
So I can be a bit tough to be around at the end. Like when I'm towards prep, there are chores around the house. Like, I don't know, maybe the garbage can gets to be a bit overfull. Maybe the dog poop in the backyard doesn't get picked up the days. So I'll say that like um I do my best to just like plug through it. But what I notice is, and you say, yeah, you get really lean. How do I deal with the side effects? Some of the side effects just mean that I'm like a worse housemate and a worse friend. For instance, it's obviously if a friend wants to go meet up for lunch, I'm like, nah, I got to eat out of my, I'm going to hit exactly my steps. I'm going to hit exactly my cardio. I'm going to hit exactly my macros. So I think probably how I deal with it is by letting other things in my life kind of go to the wayside and just focusing on my prep. And I realize that's like a weird thought. Like some people are like, oh, you got to find balance. I find for me to get that lean, I have to like shift the balance into bodybuilding mode. And sometimes that means letting other things in life slip a little bit. That's how I do it.
Hmm. Yeah, kind of like sliding scale. Yeah, man, at the end of the day, it's sacrifices. You got to sacrifice some stuff. Um, I can tell you're a very disciplined and dedicated person, and that we were planning this podcast. And like, oh, can we do it at 6? And you're like, no, oh, there go the lights. But you're like, no, what was it? 6 p.m. You cut the screens off in your house.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
Just basically the idea is want to have family time, want to be able to look in the eyes of the people that are close to you and be able to interact with one another. And so, yeah, we kind of do like a screens off, wind down the day around that time. Um, there's yeah, so that's I don't know if it's a house rule, but everybody agrees on it. So
Yeah.
and it's nice even if we have company come over, for instance, I try to kind of employ the same rule where
Oh
if I
wow.
got family or friends sitting on the couch, like come the evening time, I'm like, hey, like we're no longer doom scrolling. If you guys are over here to hang out, let's put the phones away at 6 no matter what, and we're gonna look at each
Wow.
other in the eyes, look at each other's mouths, and we're gonna interact. We could play a game, we could go for a walk, we could throw a ball for a dog, and I'll stand around. I have a putting green in my backyard, so we can play golf together, we can do something, but the phones are going away and we're going to spend time with each other, the human connection.
Wow. Yeah, that's so counterintuitive to how most people do it nowadays. That's so rare. I've got to think you're probably in like maybe one. It the area that I work, there's like a very heavy Jewish population, and they have their every week from like sundown on I think it's like Friday till sun up on Saturday, they do no technology. So they're kind of doing something kind of like that, but I gotta say you're probably in like 1% of the population that's like kind of doing something like that. The rest of us are just glued to our phones all the time. Something I've been seeing from Berto recently is obviously for his job he needs to post a lot, but he's kind of been alluding to the fact that like, hey, the phone is kind of like an adult pacifier.
Yeah.
He's just like reaching for it. And this is Alberto Nunez, right? This is someone, professional athlete, like supposed to be like the pinnacle of discipline. And so That just goes to show how addicting these things can be and controlling. Um, yeah, when did you start doing that, and how, like, what sort of benefits have you observed?
A few years ago, kind of started because I was noticing I would get a report on my phone each week where it would tell me the number of times per day I unlocked the phone. And it was shocking to me. Like it would be hundreds of times, like sometimes even several hundred times. Like I'd see that I had unlocked my phone like 600 times in the day. And I was like, man, there's no way. But I was like, man, I touched my phone that many times on that day. And I do have like, I don't know what to describe it as, ADD or some sort of thing of that nature. It's never been diagnosed, but I definitely notice I can easily lose focus and or become way overly focused on a particular thing, and so I think the cell phone is one of those things. Also, what I'd notice is I have a stepson. He's moved out of the house now, but like we would be at dinner or we'd be sitting around downstairs all talking to each other, and suddenly he'd pull out a YouTube and he'd look at what was happening on a basketball game or something, and it would be right in the middle of a conversation, but the thought would pop into his head, oh, I need to game. So that would, these sorts of things would happen. Or I'd notice like in the evening, even myself, my wife would come home or I'd come home and we'd be kind of near each other, but both might talk to each other about like what we'd seen on Facebook the previous night. So probably some amalgamation of those sorts of interactions or those sorts of activities started adding up in my head. And I was like, it's something over which I'm obsessing a bit too much, and I have a tendency to making it so that we're ignoring each other kind of randomly as the idea pops into your head to look at your phone. Suddenly you're disengaged from being with your family or with your friends. And then I also noticed that like instead of just interacting with each other, my wife and I would like just look at our phones. Um, and then maybe we talk about that at another point. But I was like, why not just talk to each other? We're both educated. We both have similar interests. At the time, we both have to stay up to date on world events and financial events so like there's plenty of things about which we could be talking and engaging, but we'll just pull out the phone because you're right. It's kind of like a pacifier. I'm just going to flip it open. And I even noticed I was developing, like I got a little bit of callus on my thumbs from, exactly where the thumb would touch the phone screen. And I have callus on my fingers from where I play guitar. And I was kind of like, what would I rather be doing? Like developing guitar calluses in my chops or like putting a callus on my thumb from,
Yeah.
opening up my phone too much. So, I don't know. I'd say it was kind of a combination of all those different things that I would say went into it. At some point we decided, hey, we need to kind of set a hard time where it's going to be like our time together. And now that it's just my wife and I in the house, we actually have like 6 to 6:30 kind of as our time to interact with one another, and we got the rest of the day to play with the phone, right? Like so, it's not like we're not doing that. But 6 to 6:30 to kind of interact, and then from like 6:30 to 7 we do like a reading thing. So we work through different books, either like autobiographies or fiction, and it's given us just kind of something else over which to bond, another activity that seems more interactive. And then talking about, reading, I don't know, the Michelle Obama or the Jared Kushner biographies, or autobiography in the prior sense. Uh, we can still engage about something, but it's like active engagement as opposed to looking at a phone.
Right. I'm sorry. What are you reading right now or listening to?
So right now we're actually just finishing up a book called Visual Thinking, which is by Temple Grandin, and it's I guess kind of commentary on how our society is not set up to properly take advantage of neurodivergent individuals, and this person's thought of how perhaps people who are on like the autistic spectrum or people who have, so I'll just leave it at that to make it really easy. Like people who are on the spectrum oftentimes have these really great talents, but because of the fact that we are like a 9 to 5 work culture, and it's hard to take advantage sometimes of these amazing abilities that people have, and instead they're kind of sloughed off to the side in school or in work, when perhaps they could be better taken advantage of. So that's what we're reading right now, and then after that we're going to read Project Hail Mary, which is like by the same author who wrote The Martian. So this is just going to be a fun popcorn sci-fi action book, hopefully. So we kind of go through things that are more serious and then things that are more fictiony.
Oh, cool. What's it called? Thinking visually?
Yes.
Thinking,
or
okay.
called, excuse me, Visual Thinking, I
Visual
believe.
thinking. Okay, I'm
Once
noting
I
it.
open the book, and then it's by Temple Grandin. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I would recommend it.
Hmm.
It's been an interesting read so far, but I might give it like a 6.5 out of 10, given all the books I
Oh,
read. Probably better choices out there.
what books would you recommend?
So I really liked Sapiens. If you haven't
Mm.
read that, that would be number
I haven't
one.
read it. I'm familiar with it, but I haven't read it.
Absolutely, I think that book is fantastic. I also really enjoyed like Guns, Germs, and Steel. I would say that was kind of a fun if we're looking into the nonfiction sector of things. So a couple of those. More on the fiction side of things, I would say Brandon Sanderson is a fantastic fiction writer. He has a series called the Stormlight Archives. Has to be my number one choice for fiction to read. Uh, would be that. So yeah, if I was to give a number one, Sapiens for nonfiction, and number one for fiction would be the Stormlight Archives, Brandon Sanderson.
Interesting. What do you like about that fiction book?
The world building and the character building is really good. It's very believable. It's set like in another universe or like an alternate reality completely different from ours. And kind of the rules of that reality and the rules of the planet, or however you want to look at it, the rules of that universe are different than ours. Um, some of the physics are the same, some of the people are the same, but I must imagine, and I know I actually have watched like a little thing about how the author does it, but he has like 7,000 page binders of like notes about how his world works and like what the rules are and how the different cultures interact. And so it's super believable fiction, but it's just really it's different. And that's something that I enjoy both like in movies and in literature is when people act believably and you can really understand their motivations and really understand their intentions. Sanderson does it in a way where we're not just looking at people on Earth, we're like looking at this different society that he's totally created. Yet there's hardly dissonance in it at all. It's completely believable, and also the writing is pretty good. I'd say he's probably a 7 or 8 out of 10 kind of in his ability to write. He's no Steinbeck, but he's still a pretty darn good author. But yeah, a lot of thought goes into it.
Interesting, interesting. Now, do you ever I don't know if this might be a hit or miss. Do you draw any inspiration kind of from like your what you read and apply that to your training, or are those kind of just separate realms for you?
I think they're kind of separate realms. As far as training motivation, it really just depends on the day. Some days I'm like a machine, and some days I'm like a minotaur, and those are my kind of different gym modes. It's like if you get what I'm saying, like I'm in there to machine day is like I'm just going to execute everything perfectly, and minotaur day is like, oh, I'm here to like rage these weights to death. I'm the god of war. So I
Wow.
don't know. I get one of those two feelings, and I go hit it. So it really has nothing to do with what I'm reading, I guess.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, Minotaur and Machine. It's really interesting.
Depends on
Um,
which version of Jeremy you're getting that day.
yeah, you play music when you train, right?
Listen to music.
Yeah.
I do in general. Sometimes I do like I'll just listen to white noise sometimes, or but I do listen to music quite a bit.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of go through phases with music. Lately, the last few months, I've been kind of just on a no music. It's been really just like focus on the task at hand. I find if I do music, because we love training so much, for me at least. If I combine music and training, I get this just like dopamine, serotonin spike, and then the rest of the day is kind of like shit just compared to it. So the training in and of itself for me is like enough of a reward. I don't during contest prep, I needed it kind of for motivation a lot of days, but when I'm massing, I like to just like do it. And then
Yeah,
I'll play music on like car rides.
yeah. I do some of those. When I say white noise, I suppose what I really mean is if I'm listening on headphones, I'll listen to those binaural beats. Like the 4 hertz or the 400 hertz or different. Um, just kind of essentially white noise. But have you ever tried something like that? Or are you aware of this concept?
The I have done, yeah, I'm very white noise. But I'm sorry, what like training on beat with the
So they're binaural, like binaural, binaural beats.
binaural beats.
Um, you could look them up. They're like one frequency will be in one ear and another frequency will be in another ear.
Oh,
And I think it's probably like Dr. Huberman level scientific rigor backing up this claim. But certain frequencies are supposed to help you to focus better, or like kind of help the brain to tune out other distractions. So it's almost like a perfectly quiet gym is pretty good for tuning other things out. But I'll just listen to some just basically kind of almost sounds like static in the background that really helps me to turn everything else off and just get in the zone. Um, so yeah,
Oh,
kind of like you
fascinating.
turning off music. It's just like one step further than that, where it's almost like noise canceling, but like active noise canceling.
Okay.
So
Yeah, interesting. I sleep with, I need white noise to fall asleep. I've been sleeping with white noise for years. But I've never heard of the different frequencies in different ears. It's really interesting.
it
Uh,
basically is like two different frequencies of white noise ish. I'll say like, um, but I've noticed it does help to kind of tune out the world without giving you any of that arousal or stimulation that like techno or metal or rock or heavy hip hop, like you don't get that, but you can still kind of tune out the world with it. And
yeah,
sometimes that's more what you need.
yeah, fascinating. That probably has some useful implications for studying as well.
I first discovered it for that actually was when I was trying to read and understand books and have better content retention. And then I figured I'd try it on workouts, and it seems to work for me at least.
Interesting. Nice. Yeah, I'll have to try that. Okay. Last question. Jeremy Heath, how should we live and why should we live that way?
Um, okay, so you should recognize that you are like a little ant on a speck of dust in the universe, and you should live accordingly. And by that, I mean you should try to, since you are inherently a meaningless thing on a meaningless speck of dust, it is your job to inject as much meaning into your life as you feel is necessary to be as happy an individual or like as content an individual as you can be. So there would be my answer. So unique to each person, but find things that basically give you a sense of usefulness and fulfillment and fill your life with those things, whether you love to go to your job every day, or you have these different hobbies that you think are amazing, or you have spiritual endeavors that totally fill up your cup that you like to hang out with. Is just make sure to give your life a lot of meaning with the activities that you choose to spend your time doing. And if you just like doom scrolling on the Instagram and that like gives you a huge sense of fulfillment and it makes you feel like you're a wonderful person and like when you go to bed at night you're like, yes, like I scrolled for 6 hours today, then ignore everything else I said earlier about like turning your phone off at 6 o'clock, because I would say if you get if that gives you joy and fulfillment, no hate, like I think, yeah, I think it's absolutely fine. Just like if in your fitness you think Zumba is the thing, or if you want to do everything on a Bosu ball, and there are naysayers out there who are like, oh, that's a waste of time for cardio, or that's a waste of time to develop strength. Um, I'm like, man, but if they just love their freaking Bosu ball, do it. So yeah, find stuff that you like and rock and roll with it. That's
I,
what I think.
I think honestly you hit the nail on the head there. I think the key really is to just doom scroll. Just spend as much of your time just doom scrolling as possible. Yeah. But
I guess so.
nah. Anyways, man, listen, thanks for hopping on. This was really helpful. For those of you listening, I will put links to Jeremy's Instagram. Do you have a YouTube channel?
I well, I do, but it's not fitness related, so let's say no to
Okay.
that.
I'll put links to his Instagram in the bio. You can go check him out. Highly recommended. And yeah, Jeremy, thanks for coming on with us today. It was super helpful. And yeah, good luck with your journey going forward. When are you when are you gonna compete next?
Planning on competing this coming October or thereabouts, maybe a couple months before, a couple months after. The reason being, I will be 35 and will be able to compete in Masters. There's a couple of local NPC shows that are really well run, and I've been to them this year and in previous years. I think they're amazing. So, really wanting to do that. Also, my wife hasn't been on a bodybuilding stage in about a decade, maybe 9 years now. She's had a really long off season. It's been productive, but we'll just say that. And anyway, so she has made up her mind for her birthday. She's going to be doing a couple of shows in the bikini class, and so ultimately we're going to prep and compete together and do some shows here in Sacramento and perhaps even maybe one in Nevada.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
yeah, between
Well,
August and November of 2023 is the window. of
August
when the
month.
shows are. Probably like October 4th or 5th, I think is the one I'm really looking forward to doing.
Yeah, awesome, man. Yeah, all right, guys, you heard it. Go check him out, follow him. You can follow the journey. I know I will. And yeah, again, thanks for coming on, man. It was a pleasure to finally speak with you somewhat in person. And
Absolutely. Cool. All right. Thanks, Ryan.